And now we go to an entirely different section. And here we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and how it's impacting. But more so, we are going to look at fintech and innovation and how that is impacting digital economy. And we have three really excellent panelists who would be for this panel. It's John Outridge, Kristian Bainey, and Ian John. And you have a very experienced moderator, a former director of CCGI, Jacqueline Quamina, and someone for whom I have great admiration and respect. And I'm so happy, Jacqueline, that you agreed to join us for Governance Week 2023 and serve as moderator for this panel. So I'm going to just introduce you briefly, and then I'm going to hand over the floor to you so you can introduce your three panelists and invite them to speak. Now, as we have shared with all persons previously, the agenda with the full profiles of all of our panelists was shared. So we will just be doing brief introductions at this time. So an attorney at law with experience as a director of publicly listed companies, state enterprises, and the private sector in St. Lucia, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago. Jacqueline Quamina has served as a director on the board of companies in Barbados, St. Lucia, and Trinidad and Tobago. Her experience includes that of chair, as well as serving on the audit, governance, and risk committees of boards. She has over 30 years of practical experience in corporate and commercial law. And prior to her retirement, she was an executive director and the group general counsel and corporate secretary for a large financial group. So definitely someone who is going to be able to understand and dissect many of the issues that our panelists would be sharing here today as we look at moving to that digital economy. So Jacqueline, I invite you to take the floor now and introduce your panelists and handle the final panel for day 3 of Governance Week 2023.
Thank you very much, Kamla. I mean, what a day it has been. And I think the last session was really tremendous. But I'm not daunted at all because I think we have an absolutely fabulous panel coming up now. And I hope, even though the evening it's getting later, that everyone has stayed on, because we really have a wonderful group of experts. And it's also an area that I would say is very sexy nowadays. Everybody's talking about fintech. You have to buy a fintech, get a fintech, form a fintech in order to survive in this world. So I thought I would, just before I introduce the panelists, I would ground everybody by just looking at the definition of a fintech, which is the term used to describe any technology that delivers a financial service through software, such as online banking, mobile payments, apps, or even cryptocurrency. Fintech is a broad category that encompasses many different technologies, but the primary objective is to change the way consumers and businesses access their finances. So it's not, and it's something I constantly try to point out to people, there is no real mystery in fintech. We create mystery using the word fintech, but really it is sort of zeroing in on an aspect of technology that can perform a particular function and sort of encompassing that, or maybe taking it out and putting it in a separate company or something like that. But there's no real mystery to it. But what it does is make us more efficient and more able and more competent in what we're doing. And then the other surprising thing about fintechs, well, that they've been around forever as well. I mean, one of the oldest was Reuters. And then we have PayPal. I mean, these are good old friends that have been around us forever. So we're going to demystify some of that now. We're going to look at the big picture. And John Outridge is going to help us with that. John, first, is he has amassed a wealth of expertise and experience in areas such as, but not limited to, digital transformation, payment systems, and electronic funds implementation and strategy, and digital operating model design for state enterprises. But what his, the most important thing about John now is that he is the CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center. So he has the big picture. He knows what is happening. He knows where everybody is. I'm sure he would work closely with the central bank and the Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission and the FIU in pulling this all together. So we're going to be very interested in hearing what John has to say, building the big pictures to exactly where Trinidad and Tobago is, and the Caribbean, if you can do that too, because some of our listeners are from other countries. Just so that you get the picture of where we're going before John starts to speak, I'm going to just let you know that our second speaker will be Kristian Bainey. And Kristian, I think, will probably zero in, I don't want to take your thunder, may zero in on AI, artificial intelligence. He is really a hands-on person when it comes to this type of technology. And I'm sure he's going to be a very, very interesting speaker. He possesses a comprehensive understanding of the entire software development lifecycle, having worked in numerous businesses. So we're really going to enjoy hearing what Kristian has when he puts it in a really sort of comprehensive perspective. And then after all of that, we're going to be grounded in what reality is by hearing from Ian John. And Ian John is the CEO of CCGI, and he's going to keep us grounded in what we have to look for and what we shouldn't look out, what we need to look out for and be aware of all the time. There's no sort of free lunch when it comes to fintechs and getting involved in technology. Ian is the CEO of CCGI and is experienced in securing the most valuable assets of businesses and organizations from the global cyber threat. He has to deal with a constantly evolving landscape of cyber risks, such as ransomware, phishing, data breaches, identity theft, and more. So between these three gentlemen, and I will interject from time to time as well, I hope, we're going to get a really three-dimensional picture, landscape of the fintech industry in the Caribbean. All right. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to John, and you can address us for about the next 10 minutes or so. Thank you very much, John.
Sure, and thanks for that. And I would just basically like to share one slide because I think it's important to have a visual of what we're chatting about, because, you know, all these terminologies and buzz terms, depending on when you might have started in the industry, you know, we talk about digital economy. Probably 10 years ago, we used to call it ICT economy. Probably before that, it just used to be the economy, right? But when you think about it, I want to start with the definition. The digital economy in today's world really includes concepts such as e-commerce, e-marketplaces, online transactions, streaming platforms, social media. So it's no longer about what they were called ICT, having PCs, laptops, hardware. Now you have the Internet of Things, you have applications, your toaster, your toilet has an IP address. Everything now is connected. So in that sort of context where we're living in a connected world, you realize there's so much opportunities, whether it be in terms of how do you leverage that connectivity now to make these seemingly, you know, inanimate objects, utilities to be part of your life. You know, people now when they're coming home, before you reach home, you could set the AC to turn on or to turn off, or set your lights to come on, or set your coffee maker to go on. And, you know, the use cases are endless, right? But just kind of bringing it back to a context from a TT perspective, because the digital economy is the big picture that we are trying to solve here for in Trinidad and Tobago. And as you mentioned, Jacqueline, where the TTIFC sort of sits is, we are the sort of lead agency under the Ministry of Finance that is working with all these parties, the regulatory bodies, the banking sector, the financial sector, the government sector, to really sort of get a grapple. And the digital economy really is where we are sort of focusing on and trying to determine what does success look like. You know, all the topics you would hear from a lot of the Caribbean countries is, you know, how do we diversify our economies? How do we tap in to this sector. Because when you look at it globally, when you look what's happening in the US and Silicon Valley, when you look what's happening in London, when you look at what's happening in EU, what's looking to happen in Singapore, the major transactions or the major entities that are becoming very, very valuable, you know, the Airbnbs, the PayPal, the Revolut, you know, all of these neobanks, those are the entities that seem to be, you know, taking the street by storm, right? And when we start to talk about Trinidad and Tobago in terms of our challenges, and again, this is where you look at emerging economies such as the Caribbean, and we look at advanced economies, you know, and it's almost you're trying to figure out how do we get to there. But you have to start to understand where we are from a current state, you know. And it's no different from any other Caribbean country. You know, today actually is in a board meeting and we're actually having this discussion. You know, we were talking about the fact that cash is still king, right? We are actually right now doing a national financial inclusion survey, because when we looked at the data and you've seen it here, you know, Trinidad and Tobago, you know, average $100 billion passes through the economy, personal expenditure. 68% of that is still done in cash. And it makes sense. So when you look at the performance of the financial institutions, you see where that 30% is, right? You see it on their balance sheets, right? So there really is a huge opportunity in terms of addressing that cash usage, right? But again, we need to understand what are the barriers and the challenges, why people are using cash. Is it that they don't understand these new payment systems? Is it that they don't understand the digital economy? Is it a supply issue? Is it a demand issue? And, you know, these are the things we're trying to get some more feedback on, right? Because when we look at the population, you know, we have about 390,000 persons that are either categorized as being unbanked, and unbanked is for those who have no relationship with a financial institution, to being underbanked, where they may probably have some sort of savings account, but they may not have a debit card, or they may have a loan facility. So again, not being properly sort of part of the formal economy. And then when we look at the government side, again, government being, and this goes for every territory, government is your largest merchant, right? Government is the largest entity that does business with the private sector. So again, if as a government, we are not promoting or we are not allowing for these systems, these technologies, mean that when you have to do a government service, you're forced to work with cash, then, you know, we are only exacerbating the problem, right? So again, this is where the IFC's mandate in terms of how do we digitize payments across the public sector. And to date, you know, we would have, for example, started with the judiciary. So now that any service that you have to pay for with the courts, whether it be a ticket, whether it be a fine, whether it be legal fees, can be done paying via a lotto boot. So the courts are no longer collecting cash. You can pay any court service by 1,700 lotto booths across Trinidad and Tobago. And then now we will be launching the Ministry of Trade, it's an electronic window later this month. So for any business-related services, you can now go online and make payments. You know, we work with the Housing Development Corporation, 40,000 citizens access what they will call low-cost housing, and being able to pay their rents or their rent-to-own. Again, was only facilitated via cash at these offices. Now they can make payments by the same cash agents online and also using international platforms such as PayPal and so forth, right? So again, started to do that. But when we start about the digital economy, one of the key things is even understand where we are, right? Because, you know, in TNT, we import a lot more of what I would call the digital economy than we export. So that equation needs to shift, right? And when you think about it, it makes sense. And when Ian talks, you know, Ian has some experience on that side of the fence where, you know, a lot of the technology we built, you know, we would have acquired it from the Oracles and the IBMs and so forth. We built a strong, what I would call foundation. What do we do with that foundation now? And this goes for all the Caribbean, right? How do we leverage the investment in technology that we have, whether it be infrastructure and training and people? Because, you know, again, a lot of investment have been spent in education, particularly from a STEM perspective. We have, you know, about 9,000 graduates coming out of university with engineering backgrounds and ICT backgrounds and so forth. How do we then now capitalize on those investments and now give them the other platform to then be part of the digital economy? How do we get them to build these applications, these mobile apps, these fintech companies to then be able to now export their services regionally, right? So this is where we kind of talk about what the success is going to look like in terms of what we are trying to achieve through the IFC, through the government in terms of diversifying the economy and changing this formula in terms of actually increasing the contribution from the digital economy to the GDP. And what does that look like? by increasing the number of fintech firms and EMI companies. You would have seen recently the central bank would have issued 3 licenses for electronic money issuers. So again, we expect more to happen, right? So how do we incentivize the investments in the private sector to do that? How do we increase digital payments across for both revenue as well as distributing grants? How do we increase the number of digital payment channels? So not just when you go to Amasi or where you go to a shop where you can only pay with links, how do you now get merchants to accept a digital wallet or to accept a QR code or all of these other forms of payment that a fintech can offer? When you look what's happening in the Caribbean, you're seeing a lot of entities popping up. Jamaica, St. Lucia, you have all these new, you have Link in Jamaica, you have Penny Pinch in St. Lucia, and they're doing quite well. And we want to encourage more of those. And then how do we increase the percentage of our population to now establish a relationship with a financial institution? It doesn't have to be a bank, right? Whether it be a credit union, a bank, or even with one of these EMIs, how do we create the right, what I would call product mix? Because you have different segments of society will have their own perspectives, but how do you now create more channels to bring them in? And my last point, before I close off, is again, one of the things that we're trying to do is we will be opening what I call a fintech innovation hub here in Port of Spain next week. And the idea is that those are where we want the conversations to happen, because one of the 3 key, I would say, ingredients we see to success in terms of promoting digital economy, what we have learned from emerging economies, from advanced economies, is access to funding, access to talent, and access to opportunities. So we hope by doing our mandate and sort of checking the box across those 3 areas, we should start to see some traction and success. But that, as I said, that's just not the TNT. But when we look at fintech, when we look at digital economy, nobody says, I want to be the largest payment provider in St. Lucia. Everybody has a pan-Caribbean vision, yeah? So whatever we be doing here, we want to make sure the innovation goes from what I would say south to north, because right now it comes from north to south.
Thank you, John. Just ask, do you think is Trinidad running behind the rest of the Caribbean as such when it comes to digitization? Actually,
no, and I am also guilty for saying this, right? And we like to be a lot of very self-deprecating, but I'll just give a simple example. For a business to set up e-commerce, which is a basic need now, when you think about it, the first thing you buy a home used to be, I need access to water and lights. The third thing is now I need internet access. Otherwise, I ain't moving in, right? It's the same thing for any small business. I need e-commerce. But actually in Trinidad, it's much more accessible. You have a lot more capabilities to set up e-commerce than any other Caribbean island.
Okay. Well, that's
the
good to hear.
challenge has been really, I would say, the communication and the adoption, but the infrastructure, the capabilities exist, and I found that has been interesting from that perspective.
Maybe we should we be more sort of aggressive in the push to get people not to use cash then?
I would say we need to be more coordinated and determined, because cash is a problem. The challenge is for what I would call the man on the street. For him, he still doesn't understand. Tell me why cash is a problem, because for him, I could take my cash and I could buy anything with it and it's accepted everywhere. So until that coordination happens where he switches the dollar for his phone and he realizes, oh, this is much more safe and convenient and I can use this anywhere, that trust, and that friction, I think starts. And a good example of that, and again, going back to the point, right? Trinidad and Tobago is the only island in the Caribbean where 50% of our point-of-sale devices are now enabled tap and go. Very funny story. I went to the grocery yesterday and there was this elderly man who's waiting by Master, and the cashier was trying to tell him, so you just need to tap your card, and he was trying to figure it out, and the cashier just simply said, she took his hand and put the towel and said, you're done.
Yeah, so it might be a bit of push. We need to push a bit more and maybe a bit of education. Maybe to
I think in education, incentivization, it is, this thing is really, I would say sorcery, right? It's exotic. And for a lot of segments in society, whether it be, as I said, one of the data points we're getting from our survey right now is that 70% of people still, quote, put money in their mattresses, trust in the financial institutions. And again, it's not to say that Trinidad has, we survived the 2008 crash. we relatively have a good track record when it comes to, financial stability and so forth, but there still seems to be an inherent trust with with the sector,
Life of me, I don't know why people don't trust bankers.
Well, you hear the little odd stories, right? When they go and they check their account at 25 cents is missing, at $10 is missing, and they don't know. So those anecdotal things kind of add up, when you think about it,
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much, John. Maybe we can move on. We have no questions that have popped up on the chat yet. So now maybe we can move on and
But we have no bankers on the seminar just yet, that's why.
We can move on now and hear from Kristian, who will give us a lesson in artificial intelligence and what we should be doing, maybe here in Trinidad, what is happening here in Trinidad and Tobago. Kristian?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm from Canada. I'm also Trinidadian descendant, but I'm glad to be here and enjoying Trinidad weather, even though it's kind of rainy today. Anyways, so what is artificial intelligence, right? So first of all, I want to tell you, I've been presenting all over the world lately, okay? And I am extremely impressed on the technology and the adaptation and the knowledge, the hunger of knowledge that Trinidad and Tobago has compared to other wide countries that I've seen. A lot of provinces in Canada, a lot of states in America are not fully adapted to it. But I do like that about Trinidad as a whole, in the sense that you're very intrigued about it. So anyways, AI is, what is AI? So AI is basically what it is in layman's terms. It's a power tool used to improve data-driven decision-making that cannot be separated from its human and societal content. Okay, so machine learning, how it goes is that artificial intelligence is an umbrella. Under the umbrella comes machine learning. What is machine learning? Machine learning is a tool that helps derive useful insights for large data sets. Decision making should also be involved in risk analysis to assess how likely it will be that prediction that your system makes is correct, and at what cost will it be if it's wrong. That is what machine learning does. Now, there's something else, like you've heard of ChatGPT and whatnot too. It takes machine learning and it translates the algorithms to language, human language, or in any type of language, and that's called a natural language processing. Now, to fine-tune machine learning algorithms, it's called deep learning. So what we're living right now, and today, it's a buzzword, is a deep learning revolution. So what we're trying to do is have chatbots and virtual assistants more fine-tuned to our organizations. So that's what deep learning will come in, that categorizes under machine learning. AI has been out since 1955, to be honest. It's been out since 1955. Like I said, it's a power tool to improve data-driven decision making, but it's only become very popular in the past couple of years, and that's because of healthcare. I would say on like things like brain-computer interface and AI-assisted surgeries and customized medications and disease diagnosis, as well as the customer service for using chatbots, like if you used in the travel agency or even your bank on your mobile phone and whatnot. There's a whole bunch of questions, and what it's trying to do is solve 50% of your questions. So the very talented people at these organizations can concentrate on more complex tasks. That's really what it is. So that's what's been taking off. And of course, we all heard about ChatGPT. Statistically proven, for the first 1 million users for Twitter, it took 10 months or 24 months. And for Facebook, it took 10 months. And ChatGPT, the first million, took 5 days. So you can see that it can cater a lot of different ways. But AI has become a fundamental part of human life today because of things like that just came out. Decision making, and of course collaboration. People are trying to jump on the board, and they should. What I refer to AI is like a tsunami. Think of a tsunami, okay? We have different waves in a tsunami. But the tsunami isn't going to stop because we want it to. The tsunami is going to come. The first wave is going to come. The second wave is going to come. The third, fourth, and fifth. So no matter what, humans right now should learn some form of adaptation to AI. Now, People might think that AI has existed for some time, but its potential for unlocking shock discoveries to the public in recent years. And how is that? Why should I learn about that every single day? But because people have to adopt to it, people should stop thinking of what AI can do for humans. Okay, what that's a very important point. Stop thinking of what AI can do for humans. Start thinking how AI and people can work together and what possibilities we can do to achieve it. That will dismiss biases, ethical concerns, privacy issues. It will eliminate so much of that. People still want to go right into AI right now for new processes. Is that the correct way? I don't think so, to be honest. If you're in a new organization, no matter if it's financial, healthcare, IT, government, it doesn't matter. If you're new to AI, you don't want to just go right into AI and buy a model-based system or model and go and create new processes. What you want to do is you want to update your existing processes and see how that works and learn from it. Once you learn from your existing processes that you have, then you know that it can work in the future, and you don't have to worry about unethical biases and transparency and all the legal complications too that can come out of it. So a lot of companies are just diving straight into it, which it's not the best approach. Now, what is the best approach of AI? AI is a multidisciplinary approach, meaning, what does that mean? That means that we need to incorporate everybody, all different divisions, all different scalability, all different partners to work together to come and make a good guideline policy of how we're going to incorporate this in our business, how we're going to move forward. It's not a single disciplinary approach. If it's single, you're going to get chaos. It's going to be chaos, lots of bias, lots of legal issues maybe, and altercations. You're going to spend more money on customizing and solving these issues than you did just trying to implement the AI in the first place. Okay, so that's basically quite a little bit of a good overview of what AI has. Another buzzword is that people that are mistaking AI for what it can actually do is called human machine learning misalignment. Okay, so AI technology does not learn the same ways that humans do. People have to remember that. It's not like just saying, hey, learn this and be like me. It's not robots like that can do that right now. AI will never, ever in our lifetime, okay, know how to do empathy or know how to do emotional intelligence, okay? There's something that you're probably thinking and you heard of is AGI. Somebody came up with that, artificial general intelligence, to incorporate emotional intelligence in empathy. Mark my words, that won't happen for many, many, many decades. It's not going to happen in our lifetime. So you have to know that the decision maker right now is going to be a human. We do have the empathy. We make the decisions. They are just providing information. AI is providing us information and options to choose from. Okay, it's really not possible to understand AI and its implications from the viewpoint of a single disciplinary, just like I said. Many people think that AI is something only computer scientists can grasp, right? If you go off the street and you ask somebody, what is AI? Well, I'm not a data science, right? But it's so much more than that. It's a game changing in computing, completely transferring how computers function compared to traditional methods. To truly understand AI, we need to embrace like I said, multidisciplinary approach. It's not just about coding an algorithm. It's about combining knowledge with different fields, different areas, different stakeholders. We draw on mathematics and statistics to build these solid foundations, dwell in cognitive science and psychology to understand human behavior, tap into neuroscience to mimic the brain's working, ponder ethical and philosophical implications, and bring in domain-specific expertise, bring in vendors or whatnot. By blending these diverse perspectives, we can gain a comprehensive understanding of AI's political and limitations and implications. It's a collaborative journey that involves various disciplines coming together to unlock the full power of what AI is. And that's what everybody should be concentrating in today's world and using a systematic approach by doing it if they want to adapt to it within their organization and whatnot. There's a lot of specific ways to do it, but maybe I can answer some questions on that part.
Kristian, if I can, one of the questions I was thinking was how would you use AI then, and say in your workplace? Should you use it in the workplace, or should we ban it? I mean, what?
Yes. Okay. Well, I think you should definitely use it in your workplace, and you should definitely not ban it. That's my opinion. Now, considering everything, all the news and everything, I recommend to firstly create an internal policy for using AI rather than blocking it outright, like how the first country did, is Italy. Let me tell you what happened with Italy. It's highly probable that their highly talented team members are already utilizing it. And I outright ban, which happened, led to hidden usage, giving false sense of adherence to the rules. A smarter move would be, in my opinion, to monitor its use, promote innovation, and ensure that this technology is used to supplement internal tasks and only with appropriate vetted data, trained data, constricted data. It's a long process in that, but it can be done. We should avoid using it as an uncontrolled manner with our clients and partners. We have to test it, revise it, test it, train it. What Italy did is they banned it. Now, what happened 2 weeks later? They unbanned it. You want to know why? Because just like I said, in 2 weeks, that population of people that were using ChatGPT came up half of what it was in 2 weeks. Why did that happen? People were intrigued. They had a hidden, they wanted to learn why was it banned. Now I'm going home to download it. So 2 million, 50% of the population that were using it before gained another 50% just because it was banned. So it's giving a false sense of adherence to the rules. So again, what should be done is working with your HR department, customize, fine-tuning it, meaning that you customize your model to within your organization, and making guidelines and training it. Have an operator, which is like a data science, that will train these models in specific ways to adhere to privacy and to adhere to ethics and bias and transparency. It can be done. Now, not every system out there is secure. There's no system out there in the world that's secure. There's always going to be a hacker that's better. People hack into billing systems, Microsoft, Google, you've heard Facebook, everything, right? What the best thing, and I'll give you a tip here. The best thing is called, if you ever want to look it up, it's called, there's many ways to control privacy in unbiased and ethical situations. It's called, but I don't want to get into those. I'm going to tell you what the best one is. The best one is called differential privacy. It's an actual term, and MIT and Harvard uses it. And who else uses it? NASA uses it, and all of these head governments in states. It's called differential privacy. And what that really entails is, all it really does is it's synthetic data. So in synthetic data is when they make up data based on what your model is. So if someone's trying to hack it or whatnot, it's going to make up this data that will contradict them and make noise. So what does noise mean? Noise is like when someone's trying to hack into you, you're going to like give them a lot of static or whatnot. You're going to give them information that's going to come back to them and to the machine and say, no, you cannot do this. It's fake noise, but it's still noise. So if somebody wants to do unethical something within your company that you haven't had a business rule for, it will know that you're trying to do that, give you some kind of information that will stop it from producing it. Because there are ways that you could properly prompt a chatbot or a virtual assistant through code or through machine learning or through a human. But so there are ways like that. But to go around that, you have to introduce some type of noise. So when that time comes, the machine learning model will know, okay, let's make up some synthetic data here and let's put it out so it will stop that line of implications or crossing the line of our HR policy and procedures. There should be 8 principles that I've actually came up with. I'm not going to go into too much detail unless you want to know. But the first would be, a multidisciplinary approach, first a principle. And how does that work is documenting an HR policy and procedure, working with the different departments in your organization. And then data cleanse it, safeguard the plan with employees, personal, and cleanse the raw data. Have bias and ethics model should be unfair and unbiased, and assure the predictions and decisions are not biased or unethical towards individual groups or within your organization. Transparency. Can managers explain what, say, ChatGPT is and how the model works in simple terms? Can management do that? If management cannot do that, it's not transparent, then you should stop right there. Make sure that managers, on IT savvy people, can understand it in layman's terms and describe what it is. Only then and there, people will have a better understanding and have resistance to change. Security and privacy, obviously, there's so much I can go into that, but it's about fine-tuning your data model, like I said, and using things like disciplinary privacy or differential privacy, sorry. Governance. How will the models perform and be monitored and maintained? You need to know how it's going to be maintained, who's accountable, and how we're going to do it, and how often are you doing it. Accessibilities, issue risks for types of users with rules and regulations, right? We have to be accountable, like I will say, accountability with rules and regulations. What are the fines? What's happening? We're going to have legal issues. Is it worth even to get into that point? Or should we just not have that feature? Because if that feature comes in and there's legal complications, do we really want that? Like a bank or something? No. But if there's something that's like, I don't see something as a benchmark happening where this could take off and, it'll be so much legal complications, then go ahead and do it, right? You just have to make the judgment. A human can only do that as well, too. The AI will give you options and give you a root cause of what things are, and you have to choose from it. And of course, most importantly, as AI, like I said, has only been popular in the last couple of years, it's only going to grow like the tsunami waves are coming. What does that mean? We have to be 100% scalable. There's going to be new data sets. There's going to be new innovation. There's going to be new ChatGPT versions. There's going to be new everything. What you're putting out there, can it be scalable in the next 5 months, not 5 years, next 5 months when something else comes in? So that's what I have for that answer. I know it was lengthy, but I hope
that's extraordinary, Kristian. And I know we're going to want to come back to you because we're going to want to tie John and Ian into that conversation as well, because they all have aspects of their own specialties that will concern the implementation of AI.
right.
Put a little pause by what you've told us so far, which is absolutely tremendous. And we're going to move on to Ian, who's going to give us all this sort of down dirty on cyber. All right, Ian.
Thanks, Jackie. And just confirm that you can hear me.
We're hearing you, yes.
All right, great. So excellent presentation by John and Kristian so far to kick off and start the discussions. So, there's so much information. Where to begin is overwhelming, right? I think we are somewhat in the matrix when you think about it and what technology can afford us at this point in time. It's almost like we're living in a sci-fi movie, right? And we'll have some of those discussions. But I think specific to the topic of fintech technology, innovation, be it in a financial institution that is now using the technology to augment its services, to increase productivity, I think we can all agree that we've seen that there's been a major transformation in how we transact, how we invest, and certainly how we access financial services. So far, much of the advancement has been for the greater good of society as a whole, right? And I say that because there's some real horror stories, and we'll have to talk about some of those horror stories this evening. Otherwise, we'd not be keeping the conversation honest. But in essence, because of Industry 4.2, because of the digital revolution, and the fact that it's all about the data. Make no mistake, it's all about data. Data is the new black oil, as we've heard. It is the new gold rush. So as companies, be it banks or be it startups or be it governments, are looking at technology and how do we introduce these new emerging technologies. We're emerging these technologies to deal with and manipulate and look at and analyze data, be it customer data, be it financial data, be it big data, be it IoT data. We are looking at how do we use data to drive insights and to create new outcomes, to drive value, to create new business models. So when we think about some of the technology that Kristian spoke about, artificial intelligence, generative AI, and we talk about blockchain, we talk about decentralized finance, we talk about machine learning, as we begin to utilize some of these technologies, these advanced technologies, we're also creating what we call new attack vectors for cyber criminals, okay? And so remember that the technology now is not mutually exclusive, it's now available to all. ChatGPT has displayed to us that if you want to find out anything about any topic, I can present immediately and have an amazing speech at a conference with some of the best learned physicists in the world. And all I have to do is to go onto ChatGPT and say, write me a speech for 5 minutes on molecular structures. And there you are, I enters Dr. John, and I'm now reading out a speech and cannot be questioned because the information is available. So it's the same for the technology. As we utilize those technologies, we have to consider that we are creating new risk. And it is important for us to understand those risks and also to stay ahead of the curve. It is going to require continuous monitoring, continuous threat intelligence of understanding the new threat vectors, and of course, utilizing the technologies, the cybersecurity technologies, to ensure that we protect, firstly, the data. The data, personal identifiable information, in some instances, it might be personal health information, and there are all sorts of regulatory, legal requirements that we also have to consider, things like GDPR, things like HIPAA. You know about those, Jackie, and so we probably talk about some of those too as well. But the fact is that the risk is increasing and it's evolving, and it's becoming much more complicated. So hopefully we'll have a discussion around AI and things like some of the frauds, new fraud, digital frauds that are being committed all over the world. And by the way, it has increased. So digital fraud has increased in the United States last year, and it's up against year on year this year because of the availability of the technologies. So it's one of the things that we need to consider. But as we talk about the technology, I want to throw something into the mix, because this goes back to what John was sharing with us, what is a big picture and where we are right now with regards to cashless societies and the reality of where the population is. I strongly believe that the most important thing about emerging technologies, when we think about emerging technologies and we think about innovation, we must never seek to put the technology first, but rather we must think about the people first. So the who and the why. So who are we trying to serve? What markets are we trying to serve? What societies are we trying to serve? Why are we doing this? What is the benefit for them? What is the benefit for us? And we talk about diversification of the economy, etc. And then we go to the how. How do we go about solving these problems? What are the benefits when we solve these problems? And then we move to the what. So what is the what? The what is the innovation. It's going to solve the problem. It's going to bring new benefits. Because if we lose the perspective on the people aspect, then we are hoping for an outcome that may never come. And I give you the example. This is very interesting. When we think about one of the use cases for fintech services, cashless society and payment systems, we think about the inclusions, and John spoke about the unbanked, that we have something like, I think it was 398,000 persons within our society who fall into that unbanked category. And so we think that fintech solutions is one of the ways of bringing them into the fold of new economic activity and allowing them to participate in the digital economy. Well, let's look at what the data says. Data says that we have a mobile population. And by the way, bear in mind that fintech services and platforms are based on demand for the service. So it's based on the law of networks, meaning that the more users you have, the more powerful the solution. So you look at people like Facebook, Meta, you look at Google, and the millions and millions of users that they have. So demand, and that demand is based on of course, the premise of data. The data, obviously, on what? On who? it's also premised on connectivity. So how do we access the services, who access the services, when they access the services to the platform? And so in Trinidad, we know that we have a very, very high mobile penetration, right? And we usually use that as a benchmark for digital penetration. But here's the interesting thing when you go a little bit deeper into the data. Vast majority of our population in Trinidad and other Caribbean countries are on what we call prepaid mobile subscription. Not postpaid, prepaid, which means I'm going to top up. And usually you look at the data, it's the $20 top up. So I'm sure everybody in this call, at some point in time, you spoke to someone and in the middle of the conversation, the call drops, right? And then they call you back or they send you a text and say, call me back, my money finished. That's actually for just about 80% of mobile users in Trinidad. And I think it's quite consistent in some of the other countries if you look at some of the telecommunications data. Now, what if we are talking about delivering this new peer-to-peer, payment systems? Understanding that data means that we have to understand we probably need to develop a different type of infrastructure and a different type of regulations to the telecom providers that says, hey, for our payment system, for it to be successful, it must not require data, or it must require that you provide data for these services, even if the customers don't have money in their account, because you don't want to pay for taxi or pay for the doubles or pay for the coconut water or pay in the supermarket, but oh, I can't pay because I don't have data. So typically, that's sort of the conversations that you need to look at. And Kristian made the point, it's not a single discipline, it's multidisciplinary, because you really have to look at the entire society and understand the nuances behind the society. I used to sit on the NCR, which is one of the market leaders for fintech solutions, both in the financial sector and the retail sector. And so we provided ATMs for 80% of the banks in the English-speaking Caribbean. And so sitting on that board with global leaders from all over the world, we looked at the future of the ATM, that cash dispense machine, right? And this is 6 years ago. And all of the European, Asia, Pacific presented that cash will be on the decline. Cash will be on the decline, severely on the decline. And here we were in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa, and we were saying cash is on the rise. Cash is going to continue to be on the rise. And I think John shared that today, that 68% of our transactions in Trinidad is cash. So a lot of what we have to talk about in the innovation and moving the population along has to do with education, has to do with understanding the skills gap, has to do with understanding the enabling infrastructure. John spoke about incentives. Some of the things that Singapore used to get people to move on to digital, a very long journey, almost 10, 15, 20 years of incentives to get people to go online, to get them to file taxes online. And if you didn't, you lost a benefit, right? So we have to think about it not in punitive terms, but really in providing the incentives and getting them educated and also building digital trust. That is important, right? Because I think if I'm doing these transactions online, government is tracking me, government is seeing what I'm doing. And I'm sorry to say, but how many of us been to a doctor's and a lawyer's office and they tell you, give me cash? I prefer cash. So here's one of the most lucrative fields in Trinidad, Tobago, the Caribbean, and they are asking for cash. Okay, they don't have a links machine. Sorry, Jackie. But that's the reality that we're dealing with. So we're also dealing with things like tax evasion. We're also dealing with things like money laundering. And in that aspect, you want to actually enact regulation. You also want to enact legislation to treat with the adaptation of the technology and really be able to say, okay, we can benefit from digital fintech technology in terms of what it can do for the economy, in terms of what it can do for our GDP. So I can talk a lot about the technology, but I'll just pause there and see if there are any questions, and we could probably start some of the dialogue, Jackie.
Mm-hmm. So are you really saying then that, were you implying that the provider of the service should pay for the data kind of thing to allow the transaction to go through? Was that what I was what I was getting from something you said? When
Well,
you're talking about postpaid and prepaid, that sort of service.
yeah, so I mean, in reality, when we're talking about payment systems, we are talking about mobile devices, right?
Yes,
We're
yes.
talking internet connectivity, we're talking data.
Yeah,
If you have 80% of your population with no data, or they need to
no,
top up,
nothing.
right?
Yeah.
Then that's doomed to fail in advance.
Yes.
So as we
Interesting.
talk cashless society, what does that mean? And what is the roadmap to get us to that place? Now, there's a really good example of that, right? If you followed, and you can go online and look at Nigeria. Nigeria launched their digital Naira currency last year, October, 200 million population. And they enforced the Naira at all the merchants, and literally after so many months, there've only been 700,000 downloads of the Naira. I think the good thing coming out of it is what they've actually created is an underground sort of crypto economy. So 39 million Nigerians are actually using cryptocurrency and Bitcoin type technology to transact amongst themselves, peer-to-peer transactions. So they've created almost like this black market crypto economy in Nigeria because they've not gone about it the right way. So it's a real good case study in understanding how not to implement, new fintech services from a government-wide perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian. Maybe we could pull the others into this sort of to create more of a discussion on this area now, which is really, really fascinating. I mean, maybe John, you could tell us how would you manage this?
To Ian's point, I'm not even trying to get a cashless. If I could get a less cash, I'll be satisfied. Because that's the reality, right? I think the example you was given, and even here at home, when you look at St. Lucia or Bahamas, right? Those were the two first entities in the world that did their central bank digital currency pilots with Dcash in St. Lucia and the Sand Dollar in Bahamas. And again, the uptake has not been significant. The usage has not taken off as they expected. And, these pilots, for a central bank to convert its currency into a digital currency is not a cheap exercise. It's
but
very
you do have
costly.
to push. I mean, you have to push people. You have to use the incentives to get people to adopt it. I mean,
the most important thing, I think, from even listening to this, right, is really having what I would call a sound strategy, right? Because, in most cases, from what I hear from people, particularly who are building products and technologies, a lot of the time is they're building a solution looking for a problem.
yes.
And a lot of thought isn't really went into has gone into how we actually going to execute this. So, I look at, for example, and, it's candidly, when you look at locally, there has been a mobile wallet that's been operating for a very long time, Encash. And the experience, when you see from a lot of people, hasn't been very positive because, they when you think about it in terms of transacting, you're looking for speed, convenience, security, and you want to reduce friction, So if I have to take my existing bank card, which I could already pay for, and then load that onto a wallet, you're already creating friction for me, And these are some of the things that, as I said, that we are kind of looking at even as it relates to fintechs when they're designing their products, because at least where we sit, where we have the ability, we do have a lot of data that we can help integrate into that overall user experience. This is the market that they designed this product for, and these are the things we're trying to help educate the innovators, because one thing innovators do very well is execute. Ask them for the plan. No, it's not there, but they can go out, they can hit the ground running, and they can build. They're agile, right? If they hit a road bump, just like the entrepreneurs, they will change, they will pivot. The age-old term, right? We pivot. I might start with a ice cream cart into a cafe, then to a brewery, then into a flower shop. They have the ability to pivot. So we're trying to help. I think to Ian's point, right, when you look at these case studies, I think there's a lot of value in getting it right the first time, because you don't want to leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth, and then they no longer, they're so on the edge with these technologies.
Think about the people.
People, yeah.
Absolutely. Have to think about the people first. Kristian, how can you? What would you add to that?
No, that was very good. I do believe in that. And like I said, I just want to maybe iterate it again that it is about the people, but you doing it right the first time is right, but it is an iterative incremental approach to implement artificial intelligence. But again, we need to stop thinking of what AI can do as a human, but start thinking how AI and the people can work together and what possibilities we can achieve. So that's the main goal that implementing any type of AI within your organization or even in general is to have it merge together with AI and people working together. You know what that's called? It's actually a term for it. It's actually called hyperconnectivity. Hyperconnectivity is combining superminds. Basically, superminds are a group of people that all think together intelligently on a certain area. So it's combining superminds with the use of computers, like the internet. It is more easy to imagine hyperconnectivity than it is to build the internet, right? So again, we have to think of it like that and have people know that they need to have a good understanding and to adapt to the possibilities of how they can achieve using machine learning or using AI with the organization. What risks come about that? And if there is a risk, can you get out of it, or is it even worth doing it? Right. So there's got to be some type of assessment that you do before you even get to the thought of trying to implement any type of a technology that way. That's what I think.
Yeah. John, does your portfolio expand considering AI as well, or how that could be utilized?
Well, interestingly enough, what you said, right? Because one of the things we are seeing, right, particularly not only in the government, but also in the private sector. So when we're working on these projects, for example, to digitize payments to the customers, largely these ministries were configured to collect cash. So all of a sudden now, in their back-end processes, they have more volume and more veracity coming at them, and they can't keep up. There's too much data, you know? So we are actually seeing now, and I think now is where I have a lot of hope, because, you know, you try to do this, I would say 5 years ago, when AI was in its infancy in the Caribbean, and terms like robotic process automation and all of these other technologies here, you know, you would have tried to figure out how do I hire 4 more people to look at and take this in a spreadsheet and dump it and sort it, you know, the old massage in Excel. Now, you know, you have all these tools like Alteryx, and, you know, you have AI and all these language models, because even now from a customer support perspective, which is a big use case we're seeing, now people are transacting online. They may have some questions and queries. There's only so much phone lines they could deploy. So now we've seen a lot of requests or a lot of experimentation with chatbots, with AI chatbots to help guide that service center, particularly when you're dealing with online, because now your operations no longer operate from 8 to 4. You are 24-hour operation, because I could go on 11 o'clock at night, make a payment, make my transaction, and I'm done. But if I have a problem, you know, I would like to get support, and that is where the, you know, the AI. So it actually is what I would say creating use cases. So in a sense, for me, this whole digitization of payments, I'm really seeing it as the sort of tip of the spear that's actually bringing out some of these innovative technologies. So for us, I think it's not just about taking transformation incrementally, but where I'm seeing the opportunity for Trinidad to really leapfrog for some of the technologies that we might have been very risk adverse in deploying. And I'm just talking government, I'm talking private sector as well, right? Because you would be absolutely alarmed at very large operations that still do things manually.
So really, we have to encompass the whole. It's a whole package then.
We need to take the pill. They can't cut it in half. You either swallow it, it's blue pill or red pill all the way.
All right. Well, let me just, sorry, go on, Kristian. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So I was just thinking about that as well, too. Like in the financial industry, when there's too much, it's a very common challenge in many industries to control large amounts of data that's keeping them coming at you, like including like in the bank industry. But one of the first things, like I said a while ago, is that remember the systematic approach. So like when you have data collection and organization, first data should be collected and organized in a systematic way. That way it can be controlled at the start. Then you have to clean the data meaning scraping it, having missing data, remove duplicates, dealing with outliners, right? The quality of the data. And then data security and privacy, of course, and data analytics and what machine learning are you going to use for large volumes of data for predicting decision making. Remember, basically what I'm saying with all of those categories is that you can definitely fine tune and compress the amount of data that's very large at the beginning to a smaller amount to use as your data set by incorporating those things like data collection, organization, cleansing, the security, data analysis. You have to remember that predictions or have a lot of be a lot of chaos for decision making. Predictions, just because you do data analysis and analysis is that analytics is that just because it produces a way to predict something and have a way to make a decision off it doesn't mean it's correct, right? There's could be a lot of it that can cause implications. So just like fine tuning all of that, those kind of categories at the start can have a huge data set just be broken down basically in half, and that's a way to kind of control the data. If you're using a large amounts of data that keep coming in, you can make it in those type of small containers, as you may say, to start off with. That just helps what I've seen with other organizations and that I've helped them do as well too.
But even for an established organization, established companies, and so data cleansing exercise is a huge task.
For sure.
That can frequently go wrong. And
it can.
Yeah.
Yes, and it can. So if you're using that, so maybe that's in that type of scenario when something can go wrong, then you can incorporate an artificial intelligence virtual assistant to help you with that. But you would also have to have somebody to monitor and measure the performance on it in different increments, as you may say. So having somebody monitoring and in increments of the data cleansing, if it's a huge part in a huge industry, using artificial intelligence can definitely speed up and save time on that, and maybe pinpoint areas that were missed. Example, like in the health industry too, when they're doing like a cardiology echocardiograms or whatnot, this analysis can scan a whole bunch of patterns or whatnot, a whole bunch of data that sometimes a human could miss, and just making sure, like I said, that AI is working with the human at the same time to achieve the most success.
Don't worry, Jacqueline, you'll still have a job in the legal fraternity. I don't think I'm going to use ChatGPT to...
You can't do away with lawyers either.
In Jamaica.
Well, I beg to disagree on that, Jacqueline.
Uh-huh.
No, it's interesting you say that, because right now there are 6 US states that have put legislation on the books, and they've laid it to ban specific use of AI. And one of those areas is an illegal fraternity, right? Where lawyers
you have to protect the people, huh?
yeah. So it comes back to the people, right? So you have lawyers who are using AI to write their brief, and the AI is creating precedent that does not exist, but it's creating precedent, right?
Even here in the Caribbean, for the financial services, most regulators, they ban what you call robo-advisors. You can't get investment advice from AI, those are the things that they, but now in the States, you realize you see all these TurboTax and Charles Schwab this, and you have a AI saying buy Apple now, but we haven't put on to that again, protection, consumer protection,
Yeah, well, to some extent, the consumer protection, and I'm glad we brought that up, right? Because I think it's one of the areas where there needs to be a lot of work done by government, and after that, there also needs to be an education drive in terms of educating the population, but also our legislators need to ensure that the judiciary, the law enforcement, and the legal fraternity. So we have the case of many people going to the banks and withdrawing huge amounts of cash, right? We've seen that, right? And there've been a lot of persons who've been robbed in the last couple of weeks. Even after we've said, okay, this is not the wisest thing to do. And it comes back to John's point. Cash is king. A lot of persons want to hold on to the cash. They want that cash under their mattress. They want it somewhere. Because when cash is stolen or cash is lost, it's easy to prove that it has been stolen, right? But when you've lost money digitally, or if you've lost value digitally, which law enforcement agency are you going to? And what is the precedent to detect, to prosecute that in a court of law, and then to get justice? So I think when we talk about fintech technology, I think that's a real dark and gray area that a lot of folks are not very comfortable with. And I give you the example. I'm sure we all heard of Crypto Queen, right? Ruja Natsiova from Bulgaria, multi-billionaire who's created OneCoin and literally has disappeared off the face of the earth with.
Use our closer example here. Use FTX, right in Bahamas. Use Bankman-Friedman.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to go Barbados. We might have folks on the call from Barbados, right? So
Bahamas.
Sorry, but the point is, I have friends who actually came from rural parts of Trinidad and Tobago who invested in OneCoin and lost tens of thousands of dollars on OneCoin, and there's no redress, absolutely no redress. So here we see borderless cryptocurrency investment type tools literally coming into our countries and stealing the wealth of our people and carting off with this. And so that tells me that there's a lot of legislation, not that you want to restrict, but you certainly want to educate, and you certainly want to be able to, let the population know that these are the dangers of these types of investments.
I think education is key. I mean, there will always be an element at the end of the day. You have to know the people you're dealing. It comes back to your usual fundamentals. If it's too good to be true, it's probably, not true. And you have to come back to the fundamentals of good governance and who you're doing business with and all those basics. There's nothing, I don't think there is any magic in the AI or the sort of the digital economy or anything that can absolutely do away with the basic fundamentals of good governance at the end of the day. But I'm going to use my privilege at the moment to stick a pin. Oh, Kristian, you wanted to say something? I was going to see if the audience if any of the listeners had anything to say. But you can go first. Let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, yeah, just talking about the regulations and whatnot. It's just to let you know that in the worldwide, the people like the head people of Microsoft and Sam Altman, has recently had a chat with the U.S. Congress, and he's got this kind of idea. And just to let you know what he's up against, what he's trying to introduce is for regulations. He's got this kind of idea like companies should have like a license or something to create a powerful like AI system. It's like basically a driver's license, not an actual driver's license, but just giving you a scenario for AI. So you got to prove what you have before it's safe to hit the road, basically. So Albin and these guys are really trying to keep things safe and transparent. He thinks that at least AI systems, before they're let loose and shared to the public, it should be tested right and have the correct authority. So the whole discussion is a big step towards the U.S. keeping a closer watch on AI. Like Senator Richard Boltzmann, who's leading in a subcommittee on AI in the States, that knows a lot about this, is connecting with Sam Altman and Microsoft in the areas of regulations. It's all for transparency and accountability to prevent issues like fake news and identity theft through imaging. So there's going to be a lot of identity theft in the future through imaging, and that's one of the real shaky parts of AI is today. It's not perfected, not yet at least, and it's not nearly as perfected. So a lot of adversaries are trying to incorporate fake news and identity theft through imaging today, just to let you know that that's what's basically in the works right now.
Okay, thank you for that, Kristian. Let's just take a look at, is there anyone in the audience that has a hand up or would like to ask a question?
Amy, I had my hand up a while now.
Sorry about that. I'm not very good at that. Yes,
that's all right.
Kamala, your hand probably is tired. So long.
The conversation was so interesting. I'm neglecting the people I'm supposed to be encouraging to participate. Yes, Kamla.
You're right, and that's why I too just waited quietly, because I realized that there was so much rich conversation going on. I didn't want to interrupt it, but well, there were two things I was sharing that Carissa was in the chat with. I think she left.
Oh,
Okay,
dear.
but Carissa, yes, is a banker. She's the corporate secretary at a
I
major
hope
bank.
that wasn't my fault, Kamla. Sorry. I tend to do that to bankers.
Okay, no, it's just that I had pointed out to the chat, so if she had wanted to, I guess she would have indicated if she wanted to contribute, because it would have been good to hear from her perspective what's happening in Curacao.
Yes.
I wanted to share though, and John, I thought of this even from while you were doing your presentation. Yes, there are a lot of concerns that people have, and I will confess to my own. I do use a lot of technology. I use mobile banking and all of that. And reluctantly, I have moved to tap as well because, you know, it's just so easy. But I used to worry. So if someone gets my credit card, they don't need to know anything. They don't need to know my PIN. They don't need to have signature. It just goes. So in Trinidad, I was happy when I realized that there was yes.
A limit.
So
Yeah.
300, and that's it. Okay, I could lose 300. That's not a problem, but not if I lose my entire amount.
But
then
Kamla, you may not
also-
lose just 300. You may lose 300 by 10
at the
because
time.
they've
Right.
already
Yeah,
been
we're trying to do education here. Don't scare Kamla. That's
Oh, gosh.
kind of complexing the problem.
Well, there are a couple of cases already
But
where
it
persons have used it multiple
might be still safer than going. It might be still safer than going to an ATM and withdrawing $3,000 and
Absolutely.
walking across a car park.
Because the flip side with technology, what the banks have done now, many of them is in your mobile app, you can disable a card. So the minute you realize it's there, you no longer have to find a number and get somebody to block it. You can simply just switch it off.
Right, and that leads me to the next point.
Mhm.
People steal smartphones.
Mhm.
I have lost
Yeah.
2 in the last 2 years. My son went to a event last week, and his smartphone was stolen. So if you're using your phones to pay now, that's the part that I don't quite trust as yet. I don't understand how it works as yet either, so I haven't gone to it. But these are the kinds of concerns that I think people in Trinidad would have towards making that next big leap in adopting these types of practices.
But you know, the interesting thing I just say in that comment, when you look at what I would put as the big tech, right? So you see what Apple is doing, what Google is doing, and you know, this goes to Ian is a nice platform for you. They have sort of their guiding principle, all is about security now. You cannot, if you steal an iPhone, God help you trying to unlock that. Even if you forget your own password, God help you, right?
It was an
It's no longer
iPhone.
your phone.
It was an iPhone that was stolen.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah,
now
no.
going to be an expensive paperweight, right? Because, you know, the way
Yeah.
Apple security has worked now, you know, you have confidence, you just lost the device. But again, you know, the encryption is there and everything, and
You should be able to,
right?
you should be able to wipe it remotely when you go home.
Exactly, you could wipe it remotely and you have all those features and functionalities. So you're kind of seeing the tech industry now, because even for users who were apprehensive, if you want to get one of these devices, you have to get on board with the way these devices work, meaning that you have to have discipline because it's going to force you to change your password, you know, it's no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, it's going to force complexity. Even Google has gone a step further and say, you forget your passwords completely, I will sort it out for you, you know. I myself haven't gone on to that just yet, and I want to remember my own sets of passwords, but what I would say, the big tech industry, I think is making the decisions for us, you know, and I think it's only a matter of time, but as you said, you know, we, in our own populations, it's not just what we are doing, but I think is educating where the globe, where the industry is going. Because you would have seen recently in the Senate, there was a big debate in the government where the embassy of Brussels, they had to shut down their bank account. And it was making it about, you know, the embassy of Brussels went bankrupt, so they had no money, yet send money. But what happened was Brussels, very, very far advanced, changed the way they do banking. It wasn't compliant to the way the government did banking. They said, no, you now need a mobile app and a PIN code. And it didn't comply with the way that the exchequer and audit regulations, so special conditions had to be developed in order to get that. So you're seeing that now where the industry is making changes, and now we have to now adapt to the policies and so forth. You know, the transformation is just, it's coming from too many directions.
Yes, yes. But I mean, there's some of it which I do love, and I think a lot of people do as well. So for instance, if my children need money, I no longer need to have cash on me. I could just transfer the money directly to their accounts and they're fine. So
Is that a good thing, Kamala? That's a bad thing. That's too much accessibility. Then you'll be on the payroll for longer.
well, that's true. But it does mean that you don't always have to have cash on you, and they themselves don't always have to be carrying any big amount of cash either. So there are some good benefits around. But
I just want to leave one more point before, and then going back to the banking sector. I know I'm beating up on the banks, but the banks are really the ones, I would say the financial sector is the ones who, particularly for us, who we need to incentivize to drive the innovation. So a quick example is, you know, where I would like to see it, and you mentioned just now, Kamala, would being able to pay for your phone, right? That is something we see in the US all the time. This is infrastructure, this is technology, right? The banks have to switch it on. But for me and the government, I need to create the business case where the bank is going to prioritize that and make the investment in order to do that, right? Because it's not a cheap investment to do that, right? And once the use case is there, you know, I realized that is where you work in terms of you create the use case, you create the demand, and that's how we get innovation, you know? And then this way Ian comes in because there's just more things to protect. More
Well,
things to go wrong.
keeping all three of you around for a very, very long time.
yes, yes. I see Kristian has his hand up.
Oh, it's still up then. I think it's
Sorry.
Maybe the AI robot put it up.
Yeah. This guy.
Okay, so just to share with everyone a reminder that the survey is in the chat now for persons to give us the feedback for today. Please make sure you do so, because I know everyone has been putting in the chat here how much they've been enjoying the panel discussions, but it's good if we could also get that formally in our survey document. So Jackie, I'm not sure if you guys dealt with this because I was distracted for a short while. There was a question from Derek Luckpat in the chat. He said digital transformation empowered by emerging Industry 4.0 technologies are a key enabler for circular business and economic models. This includes AI, fintech, blockchain, Internet of Things, analytics, virtualization, digital twins, extended reality, etc. He says this includes XaaS, so there's something for that, right? Everything as a business. Can you see these being implemented in the Caribbean? What would be the key factors for success?
So I would just like to take a spin on Derek's comment, something interesting, because what he described is basically what I'm saying is the ecosystem of the digital economy, right? Now, one of the key things that has run through my mind, and this particularly relates to what I would call the telecom industry and a concept known as asset as a service. So now you have, and you've seen it in the news now, we have all the telecoms in the Caribbean. You have big tech eating their lunch, the complaints is the Netflixes, the Hulus, the Facebooks. They're all basically riding their networks, cannibalizing their business models. They are getting revenue and we are not getting a piece of it. But you have billions of dollars invested in infrastructure that what I'm saying is basically underutilized.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that has been, to Derek's point, in terms of this, you know, circular economy, and then obviously how to leverage these things is that asset as a service concept, whereas a telecom has this network. How about leveraging this network for another purpose? So, you know, even when we talk about where you see now telecoms are now getting into the fintech business where mobile network operators are now operating mobile wallets. So what the most famous example of that is in M-Pesa in Africa. And, you know, what has been done there, you know, and these are some of the things that I'm seeing conversations taking place, but I'm not seeing the transition happening as quickly. Haiti, for example, Moncash, that was, you know, success in terms of usage. I know Digicel in Jamaica, tried it as well. I am seeing TSTs, for example, trying to get into it here, but I'm still seeing the slow adoption in terms of what I would call where you have traditional business models now leveraging the investment, the architecture to basically capitalize on this digital economy. The whole saying, if I can't beat them, join them. I think that's the kind of new conversation now in terms of, is my business model still relevant in today's world,
Let me take a stab and just add to what John said as well. And for me, this is where the rubber meets the road. I sit on the CARICOM Digital Skills Task Force, which was commissioned by the CARICOM Secretariat. And it's really looking at the labor market within the Caribbean regions and trying to understand and ascertain whether or not our peoples are equipped to exploit the opportunities of the future. And let me just share, right? So this is the reality of it. So to Derek's point, all of the technologies, Industry 4.0, fourth industrial revolution, we've had the first, which was steam power, and then we had electrification, we had the computer age that came in. The technology will continue to evolve, and it's going to evolve at an exponential rate, right? So we're not even seeing this exponential rate yet, but we'll see it in the next 4 or 5 years where, like I say, it's going to be like a sci-fi movie for us. The point of the matter is, here we are, and this is pretty much what the job landscape will look like by 2025, and it's going to accelerate. So where are those growing jobs? Look at it. It's around data. It's around data scientists. It's around AI, machine learning. It's around big data. It's around digital strategy. It's around process automation. So all that manual process, that paper-based within government, within banking, within organization, it's moving to that digital transformation and just moving to the ones and the zeros, quantum computing, etc. And here we have where the batch of our jobs, data entry clerks, administrative and executives, accounting, all of your banks, bookkeeping, payroll clerks, all of these are being automated. All of these are being driven by algorithms and hyper automation. So how do we take advantage of this new global digital economy? It comes back to the people, right? It comes back to our foundational education from the preschools, the primary schools, the universities. Are we producing the jobs of the future? Are we training for the jobs of the future? And then for the populations that are in the workforce today, some of us who still have some tenure, who are likely going to be impacted by this disruption, are we able to find the opportunities to retool and reskill and to augment the skills that we have, so that Kristian was making the point, the man and the machine, how the man and the machine works together, how the man and the machine works together to create a new output. So if you ask me, this is much more wider conversation, and it comes back again to the people, because there needs to be a transformation of the people, not the technology, of the people. I've been in IT for 30 years, and I've been part of all the big government IT projects, and it bedevils me every time. We've spent billions and billions of dollars in this country on IT. We've taken loans to the tune of billions of dollars from the IDB and the IMF, and you go and read the reports. You read the reports, and they say to you that there's been no value coming out of these expenditures, and we pay interest on it. With the taxpayers pay for that. And it comes back to the point is, we put systems in government, we put systems in the institutions, we don't train the people. We still have the Public Service Commission that is almost archaic in the way that they treat with labor, and they treat with employment, and they treat with the whole classification of the jobs. So we don't have any of these jobs here that are growing in demand classified in our public service. We don't have the data scientists. Well, we now talk about data analysts, but those are contract workers. They are not permanent employment within the government service. So it comes back to understanding the people, having a study of the people, understanding the gaps, the skill sets, and are we prepared to exploit the opportunities that these new technologies are going to be bringing, and the disruption that they're going to be bringing? If not, we are going to be on the losing end. We're going to be consuming more of the digital technology, as John was showing those numbers early on. And pretty much that's going to be the picture going forward. So I still think there's time, but it requires a leadership, political will.
And our will as well, Ian, I think, because I think the block is us. Our children are ready. I mean, our children will pick up and do any bit of equipment you give them, and they're right there.
Agreed.
It's the block there and the will to do it, where everything kind of grinds to a halt, which is where I believe really you need to push. You need to push people towards the solution. You need to don't never quote me outside of this panel. You need to push people outside the branches, and you need to make them adapt. Because
did
it
you say
can't
to push people off the ledge, Jacqueline? Did you say push them off the ledge?
But if we can't change.
Yeah, so that's it for me. I think it comes back to the people. And good question, Derek. Excellent question.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time, are we, Kamla? All right, so maybe we should do this as a sort of a final last words. I don't know if that was yours, Ian, but we can come back to you if necessary. We can move on. Yeah, John, would you like to have your last words, closing words?
My closing words is I would just repeat one of my very, very favorite quotes from Vladimir Lenin. There are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And I think that encapsulates what I'm seeing right now in the region and where I'm seeing this influx of transformation and technology, because there is so much happening that I don't think people can get adjusted. So that would just be my sort of closing words. But the reality is, you either get on board or you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely. And Kristian?
Yeah, as closing words, well, I would have to say that, like I said, AI is a tsunami. You have to be prepared for the wave that's coming and the next wave that's coming, because it's going to come regardless. Currently, AI cannot rise above human biases, errors, adversaries, which we have a lot, and behavior, making it difficult for humans to adjust to its advanced data-driven decision-making capabilities. As we witness the wide-ranging impact of these vulnerabilities, it becomes evident that proactive prevention, another buzzword, proactive prevention, is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think this has been really an amazing discussion. It really makes me feel excited that we still have so much to do in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean, and that we really have to get on board and do it. I personally, my view is that everything needs regulation. I think there needs to be some sort of global standard, maybe when it comes to AI as well, and how it is used, and sort of the ethical parameters of it. Yep. And we also need that push to make sure that we take our population with us. So I really, John, we're there with you. We're waiting on you to lead the way, and we're going to be on there trying to help you and encourage you wherever you.
Oh no, I'm not going to be the John O'Connor in this story. I will leave that for Kristian. He's gonna bring judgment there.
Yeah, Skynet.
Yeah, but it's been a really tremendous conversation. Kamla, is there anything you would like to add?
No, thank you very much, Jackie. And I want to endorse what you have said. It really has been a great conversation. I have learned so much, and I agree with you. We need John to help ensure that a lot of these systems are in place. We need Kristian to encourage us to know that it can be used for the good. It's us coming together. And Ian, we absolutely need you, because we will
need to protect us. He's new to TPS.
But I have to tell you, Kamala, I thought John was going to quote Vladimir Putin. I got a little scared.
Too soon, Ian. Too soon.
And then the protection was going to come in. It was going to kick in immediately. It's been great. Thank you so much.